time to empower, educate, and encourage your women to motivate you through whatever you've been going through. We can talk about it. We ain't passing no judgment. Don't be ashamed. It's all the same.
I like it.
Your lane. It's whatever your real life looks like. Stay in your lane. Come out the dark and don't be ashamed. Your lane. Let's have a conversation on what we face every day. Tune into your late talk show. It makes us feel good just to know we're not alone. No more will we feel isolated and cast aside. I want you to come out the dark. Just don't be afraid of your heart. So don't be ashamed. It's all the same thing in your lane. Your lane.
I can't see it sometimes. People like, but I answered that question. I'm like, sorry, I didn't see it.
You don't see the comments on your thing?
Not all the time.
Come on. Ready?
Hello, 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 and welcome everyone to Your Lane Talk Show with Coach Trish Hanna. It is so good to be in the studio today, and thank you everyone for joining in and tuning into the show. Listen, when parents divorce, they face a slew of potential problems when dividing their marital assets and creating a parenting plan that gives them equal time with their children. If not done maturely or with a professional, there will be chaos. Sadly, there are quite a few legal problems for single parents who are not married as well. They still have to determine where the child will live, the circumstances of their visitation, and how they will divide expenses related to the child, and so on. I believe that there is a method to co-parenting. So today we will be speaking with a family attorney to find out how to create a more peaceful journey for single parents, those separated, and those that are divorced. Your Lane with Coach Trish Hanna, episode 9, is brought to you by Johnson & Johnson, distributed by Lowe's Wholesale, Airborne Freight and Cargo Services, Calico Bay, where the cool kids shop. Everyone knows. Every time I walk past someone, they'd be like, where the cool, they may not know the name, but they know where the cool kids shop. They know the slogan. So cool. Thank you so much, Danny, for your participation and your support. Celestial Treats, that's my girl. John's Shoe Store and Accessories, Family Medicine Center, Miniso Bahamas, and Carrie's Fabric and Uniform Store. Now, my predictions of emotions today for this episode are 100% aha moments. I don't predict any form of crying. I don't think that I may crack one or two stale jokes, but other than that, no. This is the day that I advise everyone to be, attentive, especially those who may find themselves in this particular episode's category of trying to determine what to do with the children, what to do with, seeking advice with how to go ahead, trying to have a better or smoother transition with divorce and separation and single parenting. Get your pen, get your paper, take notes, because what we're doing right now is free. It's free. I got the eye, guys. It's free. So get everything that you need to get it now while we're ahead. You can view us on Your Lane Life Coaching's page on Facebook or Star 106 FM's page on Facebook. Or you can listen to us on channel 976 on cable. I am inviting the audience to call in if they have any questions, or perhaps they just want to have an input, or just, whatever it is that we might call in and have a question for our guest today. So the number to call is 328-8164. That's 328-8164. Or if I have an opportunity, I'm going to look down and look for some comments. If you have some questions on the Facebook Live, you can actually type in your questions, or if you want to type in a comment, that's fine. I'll try to read them off as we go. So today's guest, dun, dun, dun. We have with us in studio today Nadia Hope Adderley. Mrs. Nadia Hope Adderley is a native of New Providence. She is a graduate of Nassau Christian Academy and the College of the Bahamas. She obtained her LLB at the University of Buckingham. Nadia was called to the Bahamas Bar in December of 2005. She is an associate at the firm of Harding Lee and Company, where she has been employed since completing her bar studies. Mrs. Adderley currently practices general law, but her areas of interest are family law, including but not limited to divorce law, adoptions, custody and access issues, and property law. That's why I chose her, ladies. I chose her because she got her stuff on lock. Welcome. But before I say that, I want you to know for those, because we do have male listeners listening in and tuning in. I get that all the time as well. Thank you so much for our male listeners for the encouragement along the way. I promise you that I'm not gonna say anything to try to cause any friction or tension between you and your wife or your girlfriend, your spouse. Everything that we say on this show is pure. Everything that we say on this show is going to help educate, encourage, or motivate women. Okay, empower women. All right, so give them an opportunity, give them an hour and a half, give them their me time so that they can listen in and get empowered and educated and encouraged. Nadia, Nadia is married to Kevin Adderley, and they have one son. Yeah.
Yes.
So you know about this marriage. How long have you been married?
August will make 7 years.
7 years. Woo-hoo! Completion. All right. So welcome, Nadia. Now, I want to say, as I was saying, that our show was to empower, educate, and encourage women. Okay. And in doing so, when I sent this flyer out last week, I had a lot of persons coming up to me and telling me their issues. Now, I ain't no lawyer. You know what I mean? I don't have the answers. I don't know anything about what happens in the courtroom, and when y'all are debating, when you're having your whatever consultations. But I was inundated with a lot of questions, and some of the questions I said I will take heed to them. I will write them down, and I will ask when I come in the studio. If we have sufficient time, I'll try to go through all of them because there's a lot of questions. So welcome once again. And my first question is, we know that there is a difference between being a single parent, being married, but separated, and then of course being divorced. My first question to you is, how do the court view these three categories when making decisions?
Thank you so much, Trish, and thank you for having me on the show.
You're
It is my
welcome.
pleasure, and I'm looking forward to our interaction. I'm looking forward to providing information and advice to your listeners. Now, with single parents, if you are not married, then your matter would go before the magistrate's court,
Mhm.
because that is the court that deals with persons who are not married. Now, if you're married and separated, but you've not started divorce proceedings, then you can also go before the magistrate's court. But with our law, once you start divorce proceedings in the Supreme Court, which is higher than the magistrate's court, then the Supreme Court deals with that matter from start to finish. So that is our second highest court, the other one being the appeals court for this purpose.
Mhm.
And so that is how we look at these different situations. And the protocols are similar, but they can also be different in terms of how much money is awarded and the difficulties in terms of arriving at remedies. So that is how those situations are dealt with.
Okay. So I don't know if you could elaborate more on this particular question. How does the court determine which parent keeps the child?
That is such a loaded question to start off with. I see you coming out the gate with the guns
I
blazing,
have
Trish.
to listen.
You
Listen, I gotta
blazing the
represent
guns
these
on me,
girls
Trish.
because they come in with these questions. I say, let me get these questions out the way
That's what
first
I.
before I come with my little 2 cents questions. These are people who are actually in the situation as we speak. So they say, please, Trishan,
That's
let's see if
that.
we
That's
can.
what we're here for.
Yes, let's go.
Okay, if you are single,
Mhm.
then your matter would go before the magistrate's court, and then A single woman automatically has rights to custody,
Mhm.
meaning, unlike married people, the presumption is the woman will have custody.
Mhm.
Now, there are cases where a male could have custody. It is rare, but it happens.
Mhm.
But it would have to be a case where that woman is unable to take care of her children.
Right.
We do have persons in our society with drug issues or mental health issues, and in that case, they are not able to take care.
Mhm.
But mostly for single women, they have custody. And of course, we have to be fair because I know my husband is listening and he
Mhm.
always says, "What about the men?" But we have to be fair. We're talking about parents.
Mhm.
But a single man who is not married has rights to access. They have to be able to see their children.
Mhm.
That is an automatic right that a father is afforded. Now, let's not get technical, but I think it's good for me to mention
Mhm.
that when we talk about a single father, we have to ensure that this is someone that has, in the case of an unmarried man, you have sworn an affidavit and you are listed on the birth certificate as
Mhm.
the father of that child.
Mhm.
There are issues that happen with that too. But you must be adjudged to be the father, that's the term, and that is by you being able to present that certificate to say that you are the father. Now, when I say access, access is one head of it, but the court's position is in order to have access, you should pay maintenance. Now, not all matters go before the magistrate's court.
Mhm.
We have a lot of couples who are unmarried who just deal with their situations without ever entering a court.
Mhm.
And that is something to be encouraged because co parenting is very important.
Mhm.
And it's essential that both parties sit down to come to an agreement in terms of what is best for the child or the children.
Mhm.
So that is what happens in the case of a single woman. Automatic custody rights, but there is rights to access of the children.
Okay, so how do they determine full custody where the husband doesn't have access at all? Right? Yeah. Like you said, in certain situations, it could be because of drug abuse or, hostile
Now
situation.
you said husband. Now that's a different
Oh,
situation
it's
because
different.
because in a case where parties are married,
Right.
the presumption.
I'm sorry, not husbands. No, no, no.
Okay,
Because they're
making sure.
separated
Oh, they're
or
separated.
or in a single
Okay.
parent home. Sorry.
Now, once we get to the court
Mm-hmm.
and you are now determined to be the father, then what will happen is at the end of the day, the court will automatically give full custody to the woman unless there's a situation that I talked about just a moment ago.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, that's the usual standard.
Mm-hmm.
And then that father would then have the rights to access. Now, there are some persons who determine, and we see this happening more these days.
Mm-hmm.
There is a situation where they make an agreement that they will share custody, the right to make decisions. They want to be able to have an input. And so that has been happening more these days.
Wow.
So that's good because we need the input of both parents.
Okay. We have a call. Okay. There you go. Now, I'm not certain if the listeners on Facebook will be able to have the question, will they?
Okay.
They can. Hello, and welcome to Your Lane with Coach Trish Hanna. How are you?
Good
Good
afternoon.
afternoon. How may we help you today? Thank you for calling.
Thank you so much for your question. I was just explaining joint custody to her before your call. Joint custody means that both parties have the right to make decisions for the child. And one of those decisions would be input in terms of education. I listened, and you said that the child is one, so there's not a formal education doesn't become permanent until 5, because there may be preschool, but at grade 1, that is when formal education begins. I think that what you need to do is ensure that you put forward the reasons as to why you want the child to have a formal education in Nassau, what those benefits are. And once you state that, it would put you in a good position to then go before the court and ensure that the court listens to what you want to have done, and that what you want is in the best interest of your child.
I hope we were able to answer the question. I think the caller hung
Yeah.
up. So, what can a parent do, Nadia, if they sense that their child is in danger at the other parent's home? Now, this is a question that this person begged me to ask this question. So, what can a parent do if they sense that their child is in danger at the other parent's home and doesn't want the child to go back to the other parent?
Thank you. That is a great question, and that is something that we have happen often.
Wow.
Now, the answer may vary depending on whether the individuals are married or not. If you are not married, then what is best in that instance is you would have to take an action out in the magistrate's court for the protection of that child. Social services will become involved. They will take a report, they will do an investigation. And after that, they will then report back to the court, and a determination will be made as to what should happen moving forward. But one of the things is it needs to be reported, and you can lodge your concern with the court or with the social services.
Now, this person said to me that there is no physical evidence, but there's mental. This is her child, and the courts told her that somebody trying to WhatsApp me. I can't read the WhatsApp. Can you put it in the chat for me, please? Put it in the chat. Or if I do read it, it'll probably be on a break. But put it in the chat for me, please, so you'll have better access to reading it live. Sorry about that. So their child is well, 3. She has 3 kids for the gentleman. They weren't married. I really wanted her to come on, but she's not ready yet. So she told me,
That's
because
fine.
her ex boyfriend has full custody, and the reason for that is because she was unable to. She now has 5 other kids for her husband, and they still live in a 2-bedroom apartment. So whatever issues happened there, I think it's because of finances that she was unable to handle the 3 that she had previously before the husband. And so her situation is the children's father is mentally abusing the children, but she doesn't know what to do with that situation.
That would be a situation that's best reported to social services. And the reason why is that social services would be able to interview the children. And like I said, the matter will then go before the courts, because in a situation like that, see, with physical abuse, that's easily identifiable. You can take photographs. But with mental abuse, you actually have to ensure that you interview the children. And what is critical too is the ages of the children. If the children are of tender years, 5 or below, or 7 or 8, then that's a very difficult situation, because they may not flesh out, and they may not feel comfortable in expressing what is going on. In many instances, children are afraid. Even older children may be afraid to tell somebody if that is going on. So that is a challenging hill to climb, but not impossible. In an instance like that, I understand the situation with finances, but she would definitely need an attorney. And if she cannot afford one, she can approach the legal aid clinic that provides free legal services if she's unable to afford an attorney.
That was actually one of my questions at the end. But I'm still gonna ask that question though later on. Let's see. Someone asked, I was told that the court do not give you anything in writing as far as what was agreed upon by the judge and parents during the court session. This is something that somebody asked me. They don't give you any form of written documentation. So when the parent has to go to the police station, and if they're asked to see some type of document, there is none. Is that true? Does that happen?
No, in every court matter and an instance involving children, there is a court order that is made. Now, if you do not have an attorney, then you may not get a copy forthright, but you can always present yourself to the court to get a copy, and a court order should be given to you because that's the only way that you can have something to go to the police station or to go to any authority to enforce.
Okay. I'm loaded with questions. So what I'm going to do is take a break, and then we'll get back to the other
Awesome.
questions because
Awesome.
we're loaded today. You ready?
Awesome. I'm ready.
Okay. Let's get off it. Let's take a break. Okay, so
What happens with the
we're
call?
still on Facebook, okay?
The calls don't go to Facebook.
Okay.
They go
The
to
calls won't
radio
go
and
to-
they go to TV, to the TV.
Right.
and they don't-
Okay, so to our
So
Facebook
what I'm gonna
listeners,
do,
go ahead.
when they call, I will have to turn up the speakers in here, so I have to turn up your mic.
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay, so for the Facebook audience, to the caller that called in, I was told that it does not connect to the Facebook. But what we're going to do moving forward is we're going to turn off our mics, let the person speak, so that you will be able to hear through the mics. All right, so that you can hear the questions. So thanks so much for your patience. And if you would like to call in and ask a question, let me say the number again. The number to call is 328-8164. That's 328-8164. Thank you. Look at Nadia. Tell her I said hi. I am listening. Candace Butterfield.
That's my classmate.
Oh, Lord. She's amazing. My coworker. She's amazing. Thanks for listening in, Candace. Okay, let's see.
Or difficulty swallowing. You should see a gastroenterologist at Family Medicine Center.
Yeah.
We work alongside two
I was gonna say he's listening.
and qualified gastroenterologists in the blood
Kevin?
wellness, specializing
Says he's
That's your
listening.
husband, right?
Yes.
Kevin Johnson?
Oh, so you need to be on your best behavior then.
Yeah, he said-
Make
he
sure
said- he
you're-
said he's listening.
Make sure you be on your best behavior.
only takes care of you.
Harry's Fabric and Uniform Store has a huge selection of
Okay, we are loaded with questions today.
Well, that's good. That's a good thing.
Good, and you ready and prepared? Who's a better person to ask? Can't ask Tony. Tony ain't no much.
I know what dog. Bad advice.
No, you don't want to give Tony. Won't Tony give you no advice? No, to my Facebook audience, no.
Tony, you see how she doing you?
That's my boy. I'm gonna go with
The time is gonna go quickly
very quickly.
because it's already 6:20.
6:23,
Yeah,
yes.
it's only like an hour to go.
Yes.
They're located at number 84 Christie Avenue in Stapleton Gardens. Their boutique hours 10 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Okay.
You can give them a call.
To my Facebook audience, is everyone doing well? Yes, I do. I see that. Yeah. Hope everyone is doing well. If you have any questions, you can post it there so that I'll be able to read them off for you. And thank you so much for tuning in today. What?
You better read.
How come I ain't seeing no? I'm not seeing
What did he
it.
say? What
I'm
did
not
he say?
posting it.
What does he
You want me
say?
to post
Oh,
it?
yeah,
You
bro,
want me
you can
to
post some.
it?
Yeah.
What does he say?
She said you gotta give me best behavior, so he said you better.
You're listening to Your Lane.
Your lane.
Man, Candace, I can't send no Facebook link now. I'm in the middle of a show.
Look at this shit.
Ready?
Welcome back to those who are just joining us. This is Your Lane Talk Show with Coach Trishana. We have with us in studio a family attorney, Mrs. Nadia Hope Adderley, and she is talking to us about how to resolve issues and conflicts and misdemeanors and all these different things regarding issues with single parenting and separation and divorce with our children and how to deal with these matters peacefully and respectfully. And she's the right person to do it because this is what she does. Like on our break, we were saying Tony and I don't have no advice to give y'all when it comes to these legal matters because we don't know nothing. Okay, but she have all the answers, and she if you want to, you can call in for those who are listening in or tuning in via channel 976 on cable. The number to call in today is 328-8164. That's 328-8164. Thank you to our male listener and caller that called in today.
Yes.
We thank you for calling in and asking your question. 328-8164 if you have any other questions or input for today. So back to you, Nadia. Man, you're just shooting off these answers, man. I like that. I like that. I love it. So let's go back to our other question. How is child support determined by the court?
Dun 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 dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay, so whether it be in the magistrate's court, if you're single or separated, or in the Supreme Court, the standard is the same. What the court is looking for is, first of all, the court, it always tries to look out for the best interest of the child. It is
Mhm.
always of paramount importance, and it is the first consideration. However, the court has to look at the salaries and earning capacity, which you can earn, of both parents.
Mhm.
So, in matters like these, you have to do an affidavit, which is a document that contains how much you make and what all your expenses are. And both parties, where it's usually in writing, particularly in the Supreme Court, sometimes in the magistrate's court, you can give evidence as to that. But they encourage it in writing, especially in recent times. But the most important thing is that the parties have to be reasonable. And I want to give you an example, and I'm glad you asked me this question. Because let's just say when they're determining how much a father should give in the magistrate's court, and he has his cable bill is $200, and you may have something. The court's position is cable is a luxury and not a necessity.
Mhm.
And so you have to be reasonable in both parties, male or female, has to be reasonable in their expenses, because you can't try to pad your statements up with things that are unnecessary. You must be reasonable. And then the court would weigh both documents, and then a maintenance order would be made in terms of the father to pay maintenance based on the earning capacity, the needs of the child. Meaning, if you're making minimum wage, then you can't be made to pay an amount that you cannot afford.
Right.
That is the end game. You have to pay something that you can afford, but you also have to take in what are the fundamental needs for the child.
Right.
So generally in magistrate's court, you can get up to $50 a week for maintenance. So generally around $200 a month. But if you earn more money, then the court may increase that, because you may be able to afford to give more to help towards the needs of the child. In the Supreme Court, for persons who are going through divorce proceedings, it is fundamentally the same, but the amounts awarded can be higher depending on the earning capacity. But it's a little bit more complicated there, because both courts look for a view in terms of maintaining the child from whenever they're presented until 18. So that is some of the things that they look at. But earning capacity is the biggest, and also the court has to then kind of look in the future and see, well, how much do they think that the person can earn in the future based on what they see in front of them in terms of education. If it's somebody with a degree, they may get a different job. If it's somebody who may not, their earning capacity may not soar as high quickly. So all of those factors are taken into consideration.
Okay, so here's a question from the Facebook audience. Would a step parent be held liable to pay child support on any terms?
With respect to persons who are married, if there is a child and that child was not being maintained by the parent, and that step parent has stepped in, a man, a male, a stepfather, assumed the role of father and was made to pay maintenance, that child is considered to be a child of the family, meaning although not born to that man,
Right.
the child of the family still has the right to be maintained, just like a child of the marriage, meaning a child that they would have had together. So yes, There are instances in the Supreme Court where a stepfather is made to pay maintenance.
Okay.
So that is something that is done.
All right. Here's another question. What if the married woman had to leave the marital home and children for her safety? She had asked the husband to leave initially, but he refused. They have divorced and she is seeking custody of the minor children.
Good question. But in most cases, once we get to that part to determine custody, the court will then work out an arrangement that's in the best interest of the children. There are women who unfortunately have to leave because they need to preserve their life,
Yeah.
or there have been life threatening incidences of physical violence.
Yeah.
And so that happens. But usually, by the time we get to the point where we're dealing with the children, in most instances, they have already had custody. But if something happens and they cannot, then the court will make a determination, because at the end of the day, the presumption, meaning the standard, is usually that women will have day-to-day custody, care, and control, meaning they will have the children in their care. But in all instances, especially with divorces, men have the right to make decisions, notwithstanding their conduct. So they have the right to make decisions. Only if they really show that they have no interest in the children would the right to make decisions be taken away. So in most divorce cases, we have joint custody. That is something that has been the standard now for a few years. And so joint custody means the right to make decisions, medical decisions, educational decisions. And so the standard is the woman will make daily decisions.
Right.
What you're going to have for breakfast, how you get into school,
Yeah.
all of those decisions. But major decisions, both parties have an equal weight and interest in that. And the court does not deny a man who's married and is going through divorce, they're not denied that right to make decisions. So that is what the standard is.
But as you know, the courts, it doesn't get as far as the courts. But we know, we've heard situations where the husband is being manipulative in some way, or the wife is being manipulative in some way. Let's not even say husband and wife, the parents, because they separated, or they single, never married, or whatever, and they take advantage. Let me give you an example. In this situation, the persons are still married, I believe, but they're separated. The wife took the child off of the island in the U.S., told the husband, but never said that she wasn't coming back. To this day, they ain't back. Okay? And what happens in situations like that? I think in the flyer I said
child abduction.
Abduction. Abduction. But before I said child abduction, I said kidnapping. I want you to, before you answer that question, what is the difference between kidnapping in legal terms or in the law terms versus child abduction? Because last week, Tony and I were saying kidnapping.
No, that's fine. But kidnapping, I could kidnap Tony right now and take him against his will. See, he's an adult. But for children, the term child abduction is what is used for that. So it's just a matter of terminology.
Right.
But what it is that, and I'm glad you made a distinction to the U.S., because if you take, even whether you're married or not, there's always consent needed to take a child out of the country. That's whether you're married or not. There's a right for you to be able to do that. I'm sure many persons are familiar that, and I do this all the time. There's some persons where you may need a letter, and it may have to be notarized to say that you give consent for the child to go away on vacation, even if it's for a short term. So you cannot take the child out of the country. And it happens. I know someone who, they had two children, and I think the ex-wife took them to Canada without his knowledge, and he's not seen them for years.
Oh my gosh.
We have situations like that. And the reason why I use the term child abduction is that creates a very complicated situation, because what has to happen in those instances, if you can locate where the person is, the Attorney General's office would have to go to that country under the Hague Convention. I'm going to not make it technical, but there are certain countries that have signed on for an agreement, so that in situations like this, the Attorney General's office here would have to go, for example, with the U.S. government there, and then they would have to work together to try and find out the location. A case study would have to be done with both homes, and then a hearing will be held for the child to be returned to the Bahamian jurisdiction. But it's a very complicated process that takes a long
It
time.
sounds expensive too.
Well, they try to ensure that it's not expensive for the party because of the situation, but
Right.
it's not even the expense, it's the time.
Yeah.
These cases can go on for years. And so, like I said, it's very complicated and it's very unfortunate when we get to that point because you're going to have a long haul in terms of legal cases in order to try and get the child back into the jurisdiction. So,
Mhm.
like I said, very unfortunate, but a very complicated case. And that's only in the instances where you have a good idea where they are.
Mhm.
You can't get that help or assistance if you don't know where the child is. So, that's why it can become so complicated.
Mhm. Mhm. Last week we had some single fathers on the show, and similar to what you said, they said in order for them to take their kids off of the island, they have to have some type
And
of
the mother as
consent.
well. So, it's both parties. So,
But
even if the
is this something that is mandatory? That sometimes you have people who could go away and not have it done.
because sometimes, like for example, with U.S. immigration, sometimes they don't ask for it.
Right.
So it's not a consistent situation. I know that sometimes I do it for people, and sometimes they'll call me and say, I come to do that letter, and yeah, you notarized it, but they didn't even ask for it.
Wow.
But one of the reasons why they are asking for it and it's becoming they're being consistent with it
Mhm.
now is because of human trafficking
Yeah.
as well. And so because of now they're not really getting away with it. So persons have to have their letters.
So what happens if I know this is beyond you, but what happens if they don't at U.S. Customs? Suppose the person is unaware, ignorant of the fact that a letter has to be given.
Well,
As a single mother, because I know they usually give more leeway.
You mean
and
if the
consent.
person doesn't have the letter?
doesn't have a letter,
Sometimes they can deny travel. They can deny travel if you don't have the letter because they should have the consent from the other parent.
To my listeners, let me let you know in advance. I know everyone all excited about this vacation, this summer break. Go if you're going by yourself without the
Father or
father
mother.
or your
Mhm.
mother, for the male listeners.
Mhm.
Yeah, you've got to male listeners. Without the mother or the father, please have a letter of consent. In this letter, what's in the letter? The name.
Just to state that you're the parent and you give consent for the child to travel with
Mhm.
the mother or the father
Yeah.
for a specified period, and it's signed by the person and it's notarized in front of a
It
notary
has to
public.
be
It has to be
notarized.
notarized because the notary confirms that you have come before me
Mhm.
to swear the document as a notary public.
Mhm.
So that is important. They won't accept a letter if it's not notarized.
Wow. So that's a part of your when you preparing to travel, put that as a part along with your vaccination cards for those who are you
Yes.
Tony laughing. Okay.
That's in
Make
your
sure that's
package.
a part of your package, but when you're traveling. Okay, so let's go back to the finances because this is a hot thing. I have a lot of questions about finances. If co-parenting is not working, where one parent is being spiteful and not supporting the kids financially, is it best to move on or get the court involved?
That's a matter of personal choice, and I'll tell you why. I have some clients who call for consultation, and after speaking to me, they may say, you know, I really don't have the time involved to go, especially the magistrate's court. Because if you don't have a lawyer, then you have to sit and waiting for your number. If you have a lawyer, then the lawyers' cases are done first. And then after the lawyers, then they just go in alphabetical order. So if your last name is W, you could
Doggy
be there
lunch.
all day. W is not for the win on that day.
Williams,
Okay.
Tony,
Yes.
your family changed their last name to Anderson or something.
So I say that, but not everybody can afford an attorney, and we're sensitive to
Right.
that.
Yes.
And so sometimes, and another thing that my husband always reminds me of, depending on what type of job you have, if you have a strict job where time is of the essence,
Mhm.
then you find that a lot of persons get cut from work, or sometimes they even face being suspended or even terminated from their job because you can't take too much time off from work to deal with matters.
Yeah.
And then sometimes court matters can get like that where you have to have adjournment after adjournment to come back to deal with the matter. So, like I said, that's why I say it's a personal decision. But I feel that persons should be held to their responsibility and they should be made to pay
Mhm.
maintenance. That's important. You have to take care of your children.
Mr. Adley have exactly with an exclamation mark there. So, okay. All right. Oh, by the way, everyone, that's Nadia's husband. Hello, Mr. Adley. How are you? Okay, so now, like I said, with these questions, Matt, what can a parent do when one person has more money than the other and uses their finances to their advantage in the court.
Okay, finances is only one part of the picture. You can have finances, but sometimes we may have, and I'm going to say clients, because sometimes we are in a world where even some mothers are sometimes too busy for their children and
Yes.
depend on some other family member to take care of their responsibility. But finances are a major part, but it's not the only part. You also have to consider the time that you invest. How much time are you spending with your children? What do you have them enrolled in? Do you know about their whereabouts, especially as they get older? So the courts try to take a holistic view to make sure that it's not just about money,
Right.
because sometimes people feel that way. Money is important, and it's simply because in our system, particularly in the magistrates court, if you do not pay child support, then the punishment for that is that you can go to jail for contempt of court, and you can spend up to 14 days if you do not pay your maintenance. So, but the courts use that as a last measure. They will give opportunities for you to come and try and then sort it out.
Right.
However, if you get arrears and your money is backed up and you've been paid, they work out payment plans for you to pay a certain amount and pay over time. They don't want to send people to jail.
Right.
But if you insist on not paying, they will. But that's why we kind of have the perception that everything is about money. But no party should be able to use money as a leveraging tool to eclipse everything else. It's other things that are important in the court's eye as well. Spending time, investing in the child, having, you have to know your child and know what they're doing. And these judges know which questions to ask to know exactly if you're truly in tune with your child or not.
That's my next question, because mouth could say anything. You have people who lie, they lie like they like sly foxes. So what happens in situations where a person lies themselves? Because men could be very manipulative, women could be very manipulative. They want to get what they need to get. So do you ask, or does the court ask for the children to come in to witness or to bear witness to what is being said?
No, only in situations where children are being endangered, and not in these access matters. Is that's another type of matter. So no, children don't give evidence, because you have to understand children is very delicate and sensitive, and the court does not want to drag them into matters involving their parents. That's not really the place for them. So no, they're not involved in brought into these matters. But I can tell you that in my experience, time always tells in terms of who is being truthful and who isn't. But the unfortunate thing is, I think a lot of persons end up being frustrated with the system. So most persons abandon it and just say, well, if I don't get paid, I'm going to deal with it the best way I know how.
Yeah. And you have situations where persons are given legal access or granted to in their favor, but it's not done fairly to the other person. Can that person go back into court or go to a higher court system to try to deal with the matter?
Yes, you can. In our system, and even in magistrates and Supreme Court, you can have what we call a variation. That means you want to change the terms of the order.
Right.
If it isn't working out, you can explain to the court in an affidavit why it isn't working out. And a lot of times, certain situations don't work out. But you can explain that every court order can be varied and changed for that same reason, because you're not locked into an order for X amount of years. So it can be changed. Yes.
Someone is saying, I like the fact that you said that, because I know someone who wasn't working, therefore couldn't pay support regularly, but had the child 24/7. Because they didn't have a lawyer, they were almost put in jail because of child support.
That can happen. And my thing is, usually magistrates will try to be sympathetic to the fact that you're not working. But no party can say for 2-3 years, I'm not working. You have to make efforts to do something in good faith to show that you want to take care of your child. So you can use that for a while. But if you're not working, and particularly at what has been going on, we've had Dorian, we've had COVID, we've had so much situations. So the courts try to be sympathetic to what persons are going through and try to be innovative to make orders in terms of that. But I don't think that they would put someone in jail if you truly fell on hard times and you're having a hard time. No.
Wow.
No.
Okay. Let's take a break, Nadia, because you've been on the road. You've been just shooting out, and the audience are just so grateful for the fact that you were actually able to share with them their concerns, and their questions have been answered. Thank you so much for that. And so we're going to take a break, and then after the break, I have a question that I really, really have to ask you. So,
All right.
question.
All right.
All right. Let's go. Would you like some water?
No, I'm good, thanks.
You good?
I'm good.
Okay.
J&J got what you need for everyday skincare. For that smooth skin, like Neutrogena, Aveeno, clean and clear. We got Listerine that's gonna keep your breath fresh and clean. That you love, I'm gonna tell you.
That's my husband's aunt. That's my aunt.
Oh. All right, we're doing good for time, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry? I can do that right now. Yeah.
Carrie's Fabric and Uniform Store has a huge selection of beautiful beaded laces and embellished fabrics, perfect for prom, wedding, and evening dresses. At Carrie's, you will also find stretch lemurs, stretch taffetas.
Time going is almost 7 o'clock.
I tell you, it goes by very quickly.
Upholstery
Very
fabric,
quickly.
men's sewing material, evening bags, gloves, rhinestone jewelry, and so much more. Carrie's Fabric and
People asking a lot of questions.
Telephone 393-0758, a designer's paradise.
Shoes and accessories.
Take care,
It's a
yeah,
one-stop
I'm
shop
gonna
for all your footwear needs. Whatever the occasion, John's is confident you will find what you're looking for. Among our always growing collection of amazing and trendy styles. We cover women, men, children, the whole family. Together with John's great prices and helpful and friendly customer service, your experience in shopping with us will be time well spent. Too busy to come in store, shop with us online. www.johnshoes.com. John's also now carries small home appliances. So come on in today at John's. They'll be put fashion at your feet.
Get ready for the season of savings with Beauty So Bahamas. Enjoy it to 50% off store-wide until November 30th for our Black Friday sale. Come and shop bath and body items, makeup, along with loads of toys and marble products. Why wait until December to do your Christmas shopping when you can do Black Friday shopping with us?
It's a generic
Check us out
ad.
today in the mall
It's a
of
big
Bearable.
boy, but it's a
Love life,
generic ad.
love ease.
You can't play
That's
that.
not the person, that's not the one you did first?
Not the beginning of it when they first started. It's a generic one. Same voice, same music, but not that fervent.
Step into Calico Bay and
Oh my god. I gotta give them an extra ad next week. We give them an
I don't know
extra
if
ad.
they have, give me that a generic one.
Yeah.
10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday. And give them a call.
Okay, I'll just resend all the ads. You know, when I send the ads, I send it to you, April, and Janet. I send the ads to you, April, and Janet.
You're listening to Your Lane with Coach Trish Hanna.
Welcome back. Before we continue with Nadia, I would like to tell you all about Celestial Treats. Listen to me. They're located on Claridge and Raymond Roads. Nadia, how old is your son?
2.
2. Any parties anytime this year?
Who knows? You know how it goes. He'd have one next week for all we
Oh
know.
my gosh. Listen, if you want the popcorn, cotton candy, snow cones, hot dogs, pizzas, nachos, party bags or boxes, party supplies or rentals, I have to tell you to go down to Celestial Treats. Now, they're located Claridge and Raymond Roads. That's that corner, like when you're coming off of Wolf Road, Claridge Road. And then as if you're heading towards the mall,
Right.
it's right on the corner right there. They have a Facebook page that you can go on if you want to see all the different treats and the products and services that they have to offer. Their Facebook page is Celestial Treats, and you can give them a call tomorrow, Nadia, just in case you want to plan the party for your son. Kevin, Mr. Adley, I hope you're all listening. The numbers, write the number down, 605-9899 or 395-9899. That's Celestial Treats. I'm telling you, I used her numerous of times. My children's school use her all the time. She is dependable, reliable. She's professional. And I guarantee you, tell them Trish sent you. She may
All
give you
right.
one little discount.
All right.
All right, let's get back to business. So now, here's the burning question I have for you. Now, to be honest with you, like I said, I keep on saying this. We want to empower, educate, and encourage. And I guarantee you, Trish sent you. She may give you one little discount. All right, let's get back to business. So now, here's the burning question I have for you. Now, to be honest with you, like I said, I keep on saying this. We want to empower, educate, and the women that listen here, and of course men that are listening now. So I can't even say women like that, but primarily this is a women's talk show. And there are some women out there who may be going through some things pertaining to their divorce or in the process of divorce. Okay. But they feel as if that's not the end. They feel as if that's not it. That's not the divorce is not the answer. But they may have a male or their husbands who may be, enough is enough. I want to move on. They may see a little thing on the side there and they won't go to this little thing. I do not like divorce. I really don't. Under, outside of the circumstances
Yes.
and the reasons why divorce should take place according to the word. I said all of that to say, have you ever been in a situation where you had to advise a spouse? I have to advise a married couple or, individually they're on the verge of getting divorced. Okay. And then in the midst of, you advising them, etc., they turn around and somehow their marriage was restored.
Yes, and actually I have an interesting story for you. It was an
Oh, gee.
older couple.
Okay.
So they got married, they divorced, and they got remarried.
Mhm.
And then they were going to get divorced again. And
Okay.
in the midst of proceedings, I said, "Yo, sure, this is, I told
Mhm.
one, like, you can only speak to one person.
Mhm.
The other person didn't have a lawyer. But I said,
Mhm.
Are you sure? He said, I'm going to think about it and get back to you. So we had a pre-hearing, and they said that they were going to reconcile and try to work it out. And they did. So what happens, just so you know, in the case of divorce, a divorce is not finalized until there's a document called the decree absolute.
Mhm.
Once the marriage has been dissolved, if there are no children, then within 3 months you can have the decree absolute, that final document, done. If there's children, matters for the children have to be sorted out first before it can be finalized. But I always tell clients at any time prior to that last document being granted, if you decide that, hey, we're going to work things out, and I've had many instances of this, listen, I'm not going to go through it anymore, even though they told me be almost there. But if that last document isn't done, then you can decide that you want to go and work it out, and it's not finalized, and so therefore you can make your marriage work. So what happens? It happens.
I had to stick a pin there with all the different questions with separation because that making me nervous. I only doing this because that's a part of what I want to do. But I would always, I'm an advocate of just, hey, let's make it work. Let's see if you guys can make it work. Let's see if you could,
I am too.
pray about it. I don't know,
Yes.
go on a fast, do something.
And sometimes
To get it
separation may,
together.
may be needed to
For
have
a
that
time.
period
Yes.
to get it together.
Yes,
There
to
should
get it
be a
together.
period, and some persons do come back and they reconcile and they make it work.
Because I love nervous and here talking about divorce and separation like this. Just ain't me. I have to put in that little thing, and I'm glad that you said that for anyone who's listening in and tuning in for a wife right now who wants her marriage to work. I'm sorry, this is unscripted at the moment, but I have to say, if you are praying and you're seeking advice from people, or you're even seeking God, to say, look, I want my marriage restored. I believe that things are going to happen. I believe at some point that my marriage is going to come back together and be happy. Listen, there is hope. There is hope for you. Just keep on praying if you're doing that. Keep on fasting if you're doing that, and do what you have to do as a wife as you continue on with your journey. Because there might be, you may think, okay, well, he doesn't love me anymore. If he's not doing what he's, if he's still under your roof, if y'all under the same roof, you still have
There's
a
an
duty,
opportunity,
right,
There's
to
an
do.
opportunity.
You still cook for him. Right? Some people don't like that. You still clean for him. You still make sure the house is tidy and everything. You do your part as a wife. You do your part as a wife. Regardless of how his heart is at the moment. I had to put that in there.
That's no
Y'all may not
problem.
know where I'm going with this. This ain't for everybody, but for the person who needed to hear this is specifically for you. My mind is on you. Do not give up hope. Let's go back to our questions.
Yeah.
Let's talk about persons who've never been married. Let's talk about the single folk. Where do they fit in with all of this? Because, like you said, there's different measures of going to the courts.
Well, they
So-
would, like I said before, they would go before the magistrate's court. So if you've never been married, the magistrate's court is where you would go.
Right.
and you would be able to ensure that you get a proper order for maintenance.
Mhm.
And usually there's not issues with access. But if there is an access issue, the court will deal with that at the same time. And now that you say that, let me say, we have to be fair. There are a lot of women who use that as a means to withhold children from seeing the father because they figure that they have all of the rights.
Mhm.
But men do have rights to see their children as long as they're being provided for. They have to be made allowed to see their children. And so we have to be sensitive to that. And then there are a lot of men where once things don't work out, they just abandon ship and then they don't ever want to be involved anymore. We also cannot be supporting that.
Mhm.
And I say that because the role of parents should not be using the children as a tool.
Hold on, stick a pin there. Stick a pin there. All right? You cannot be manipulating your ex-husband, your ex-boyfriend, and all these different things on behalf of your child, using your child as a form of, your scapegoat for what you want, for what you want to have, for what you want to do. You cannot do that. It is wrong. For those who are doing it, it is wrong. It happens all the
It
time.
sure does.
Okay, and it hurts the other person significantly. It does. I know someone who cries because they're unable to see my stories. My aunt is she's a retired teacher, and she told me about a story about this father who comes in because the husband and wife divorced. This is his student. This is her student now. The husband and wife divorced while they were in school. They're now in the sixth grade, and the child lives with the mother.
Hmm.
The mother does not want the ex-husband, to see the children because she's mad. She's angry at him for whatever reason. Yeah, he did his duties. He did some things that he wasn't supposed to do, but she's using them um, and manipulating him with them. What he was doing, and I don't want to, well, this was a long time, so nobody get in trouble. He used to come to the school on lunch breaks and beg her to please see the child. Please let me see the child. I know the woman ain't letting me see. Can I just spend some time with her on the lunch break, on whatever breaks they have to spend some time?
Many men have stories of that they can
Jesus.
tell you. It's not fair, and it really shouldn't be done. And if you're married, you can go back to court. But for some men, and in most instances, it usually sometimes it has to be the woman to bring an action to allow that action to actually start and move on. So sometimes some men are stuck in a situation where they can't do that. That's manipulating the system to your disadvantage, and it is wrong. So
Wow.
the thing is that's most interesting is that we have to remember that when children become adults, they will figure out what went wrong and they will be able to fill in the blanks. And it's only going to end up being a resentment against you for actually doing that
Yes.
and withholding the child. As co-parents, we need to strive, and as a society, we have to make better decisions and ensure that we do not allow our bitterness to get the best of us,
Yes.
and make decisions as co-parents that are in the best interest of the children for their welfare and their happiness.
Absolutely. What are some of the issues that you hear concerning single parents?
Well, a lot of them have issues really stemming from communication.
Mhm.
Like, for example, technology is wonderful and I love it.
Mhm.
But we have so many instances of, okay, the parents are not really speaking because they have each other blocked on WhatsApp. And so, because we have each other blocked on WhatsApp, what's happening? We're not talking about the child. We're not discussing what the child needs, what is next steps. So there's no type of togetherness or unity in terms of being co-parents and united for making the best decision. So it's a lot in terms of communication. It's a lot in terms of what happens when other parties become involved, because of course people do move on, and sometimes situations become messy because then you end up having strife and incidences involving when you move on and there's other partners, then that creates a mess and then you have strife and conflict with that. But the biggest thing is you can't lose focus. You must ensure that you're doing the best for the child, because
Yes.
at the end of the day, it's the child who suffers. And teachers can tell you about the grades and
Mhm.
the children having breakdown in school. They're having mental trauma. They're having bouts of crying.
Yes.
They're having issues with staying focused. So all of these things end up hurting the children.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So other than that, other than the communication with the single, because we dealt with the divorce, we
Yeah.
dealt with the sort
So,
of
as I
separation.
said, we have that, and then we have issues when other partners come along, and
Mhm.
so that creates a problem. And then sometimes issues with finances. Financial situations can change, but if we're not mature enough to be honest with the other side and say, listen, I know the school fee due in 2 weeks, but I have this situation. We have to learn how to give and take
Mhm.
because everybody has their time and their day.
Mhm.
Be mature and say, listen, I don't have the school fee money this time. I need you to catch up and cut me, and then next time I'm going to
Wow.
come in and resolve.
Yeah.
But no, we can't just be so tit for tat and exact because then the child suffers in that.
Yeah.
Things will happen on either side. And so one of the things is being able to give and take and understanding that you just can't be so straight down the middle in terms of dealing with
Yeah.
situations.
You have to be able to compromise.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so here's another question. Is there a law that gives rights to the possessions from a deceased man that has children outside of the marriage?
Good question. Now, with our laws, and we had a 2002 law that was passed, whereas any child, and like for example, that example, if there's a child of the man, whether it's inside or outside of the marriage,
Mhm.
that child can have a right to claim possessions automatically if there was no will. But what happens is, here's the ticker.
Mhm.
What has to happen is, in a lot of situations, children born outside of the marriage, because I don't like the term outside child, the child who is not born in the marriage, that particular child, as long as he signed for the child and his name appears on the birth certificate, that child has every right that a child born within the marriage. And this was since 2002.
Wow.
So in that case, yes. But see, sometimes children born outside of the marriage are sometimes shafted because that person can create a will and only include the children
In
inside
the
of the
marriage.
marriage.
Mhm.
So that can only be true if that person is listed in the will. But that question was talking about a situation where there's no will.
Mhm.
If he signed for the child, then yes, he would have an equal share, just like the children that were born in the marriage.
Okay.
So that'll be the answer to that question.
All right. For those who still would like to call in, you can still do so at 328-8164. That's 328-8164. If you have any questions or you want to have an input, you want to say something, 328-8164. Okay, Nadia, thank you for that. Now, this is the question that you answered already, but someone's asking again. For persons experiencing issues co-parenting, but cannot with co-parenting, but cannot afford an attorney. She said this already, but just you can still reiterate. Is there a place that they can go to seek free counsel?
Yes, the Legal Aid Clinic provides free legal representation. You do have to pay court fees and court expenses,
Mhm.
but the legal representation is free. So there is the Legal Aid Clinic that's a part of the Eugene DePuche Law School. They do take persons on an application, and it's a case by case basis,
Mhm.
and it's to their absolute discretion
Mhm.
in terms of who they take on. But that is an option for those who may not be able to afford an attorney. And there are some attorneys, some family attorneys, who do pro bono work.
Mhm.
We do it as well, and we do it on a case by case basis depending on the situation.
Mhm.
It may not be absolutely free, but we can and sometimes do provide incentives or discounts in certain situations, particularly to women who are abused or in violent situations, because we are sensitive to that and the urgency in getting representation.
That is wonderful.
Yes.
When you say we, do you mind saying the name of where you are?
You can say it.
I
I think you said it earlier. Let's leave it as that.
So don't say it again, because I don't want to get you. Let's not say it then. Let's not say it, just in case.
Just
All
in
right,
case.
because I don't get nobody in problems. Miss Adley, I ain't trying to get your wife in problems. All right, so I'm not gonna say the name of the we that she's referring to. All right, so let's take another break, and then when we get back, we want to give some little advice. How can we help with restoration? How can we help with creating peace? What are some tips that we can give to our listeners who may be experiencing what we're speaking about today?
Okay.
Right after this. Say,
No,
please
problem.
don't. He said, please don't.
The Bar Association is sensitive with advertising.
Yeah.
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 Prices Then look no further.
And they're very, I mean, you can say it as my bio, but I cannot make it seem as though I'm soliciting
Right.
business.
At the end, you can say it.
You can say, yeah, you can say it to the end, and you can say that I'm a associate of this. You can say it in closing,
Okay.
but we can't put no fee, no, he can't put no plugs out there.
Okay,
They'll come
right.
after me.
Yeah, so we don't want that because we need you back.
Which I think it's your should be about.
Man, listen,
That's not okay.
yes, man, and then not even that everybody else is able to do it, but I mean,
Remember now, you're still live.
That's all right.
No, I don't want to get in trouble.
Right.
but here's the thing, though. I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Facebook, and people could use that, and people could use that against you. Hello.
the thing is, though,
Be
I mean,
careful.
there's ways, like for example, you found me on Head Notes,
Yes,
and that has
yes,
been
I
a
did.
good tool because see, persons can recommend.
Yes.
So that's been good. There's
Okay.
nothing wrong with that. We can do that.
Okay. Doctors can't do that either. Dentists can't. No, trust me.
I know.
Yeah, I don't know why.
We had a
We can only do the phone book, and guess what? Back in the day, you couldn't even have your sign had to be a certain size. They've relaxed that a bit now. Yeah, I don't know if you all realize it, but if you look at some of the old law
Yes,
firms,
we are aware of
it's
still
like
harass,
it's
but
not
whatever we're
even
saying,
bigger than that.
we're making sure that it won't be used against us.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Because someone say, you know, we could still hear you. Yes.
Yeah, we know. I'm not saying anything out of the way.
we had a dentist from way back.
Mhm.
Some stuff with the dental association approached us. You all know you and me.
Yeah.
I said, that's for y'all.
Hmm. I
Y'all
got
don't tell us
one-
how we run our business.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
All right. I got one dental
If
place.
you don't know why, but that's your business.
But don't get the American people
Exactly.
in this. I had one dental place that advertised with us. And then I think somebody got a hold of that and they couldn't do it
Yeah, but
anymore.
it's true.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things, you know.
They need to
Who
get
sets
it in
these
20
rules
seconds.
and laws? I need to know that.
They come down from it's things that was enshrined, like traditional professions have these rules that are attached to it. So
We gotta do some of that today.
I mean, you watch TV in the US. What do you see?
All the time.
Mhm.
Legal lemon. If you
Mhm.
break your toe, when you know, call 1-800, break my toe.
Yeah, no, we're just dedicated to that stuff.
Step into Calico Bay and be transported to the whole new dimension of Jesus. They're located at number 84 Christie Avenue in Stapleton Park. Their boutique hours, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. You can give them a call at 677-34.
Audience, you've been great. Thank you so much for your engagement. Those who are on Facebook, thank you so much. Candace was asking where the clinic is located, but she said she found it. So that's awesome. Good. We're gonna need that. Some really good people out there, really good people, man. And the
Yeah.
families are broken
and hurting.
and hurting, you know. They
And
need
hurting.
help.
And we need to be innovative in terms of what solutions
Yeah.
we provide. I'll tell you one of the things that I encourage persons to get help,
Yeah.
counseling. I encourage persons to get medical help in situations where there's infidelity. We have
Let's
to.
talk about that.
Yeah.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much to my listeners that are tuning in. When y'all see me rocking like this on Facebook to this wonderful beat that Sammy Star did for me, specifically for me, I think this is one of his best work yet. Just know, just know that I am just grateful for every time I hear this song. I am grateful. I am grateful for even having the opportunity to be here, for having the opportunity to share. For having the opportunity to ensure that you are getting as much insight and education as you possibly can. And so don't mind me. And in most situations, that's when I'm nervous too. Now, the beginning of the show, when I bumping like this, that's the nerves settling. But in the middle and after that, that's just me being grateful. All right. So y'all can bop along with me when y'all hear the song every time it plays or the instrumental. All right. So welcome back, everyone. And we are 9709. Where the time going? All right. So we I think we have already answered. I don't know if anyone have any other questions, but right now we're gonna talk to those who experience what we've been talking about, and we're gonna share some tips and insight to help with whatever it is, it may be, you may say to yourself, look, that's it for him. I don't want to be with him or her. I don't want to be with her anymore. And then y'all go your separate ways. Y'all know what your reasons are. But there are others who may not be certain. Some might just say, well, it's just irreconcilable differences.
which is not a ground, and we could go over that because I think there's a lot of misinformation
Mm-hmm.
in the Bahamas with respect to divorce. There are only certain things that can happen for you to get a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
For background history, for quite a while, you only was able to get a divorce on the ground of adultery because we were based on biblical
Right,
principles.
principles. Mm-hmm.
And then later on, the law was amended to allow other grounds. One is which is cruelty. Cruelty can be mental or physical. So
Mm-hmm.
cruelty doesn't mean that somebody is beating you, but it could be because it can be mental, physical, or both. We have adultery. We have desertion, meaning that you leave, and we have 5 years separation. Desertion for 2 years or 5 years separation.
Why your husband
What is he saying?
asking me on my show about separation? He wants to know about the adoptions. Let's talk about adoptions too. But we'll add that on. But let's finish talking about the divorce thing.
This wasn't a show about adoption.
Listen, Miss
We-
Hannah,
we-
ask about adoption.
we need a separate show for that. That's a
You
lot.
hear me? I didn't say it. My guest said it.
We need a
Your
separate.
wife said it.
We need a
All
separate
right.
show for
We
that.
we're gonna have another show for that. I love that. I love that though. Because you
Separate
deal with
show.
that as well.
Yes.
And I 100%. I always wanted to know. Because like all these children in all these different places.
It's so
and
complicated. It is
How-
so complicated. But we could do that.
we do another time. Okay.
We
fine.
can't. We
Let's
go
get
off the
back. Let's
tangent.
get
We go
back.
off the cliff.
Let's get back.
But yeah, so there's only certain grounds: desertion for at least 2 years, meaning one party has deserted the other; 5 years separation; cruelty or adultery. And so, people come to me and say, I could get a divorce on irreconcilable differences.
It's a no.
No, you cannot. And they're telling me, and I'm like, no, you can't do that. That's the U.S.
Mhm.
That's the Bahamas. Let's separate. So, that means that you can't just get a divorce for no reason. That was not the
But
intention.
now, what if he choose bad? What if he choose?
Oh, boy.
Mm.
Well, like I tell
What if he
them,
don't know how to chew gum? I can't
well,
divorce him for that.
no. You could leave him and come in 2 years and say, well, okay, because he used to chew gum, but I've been gone now for 2 years
Yeah,
and
yeah.
get it that way. But
Don't do it, y'all. Don't do
no,
it.
but,
Uh-huh.
not the small things. You have to
Yeah.
get over that.
Get over it. So, do you do any? Because I know this is you want to remain professional,
Of
but then
course.
again, you could see things because you see things like this all the
Of
time.
course.
You see where a person's just coming in for the petty reasons, and they
And I
tryna
would-
do
and I will
whatever,
tell them
and they
that-
have children.
Yeah, but
How
sometimes
do you-
sometimes there are some people who say, and they're honest, they're like, listen, I just want out. I don't have a reason. And I said, well, in good conscience and because of what I believe,
Mhm.
that's not something that I would facilitate.
Condone. Mhm.
I don't condone that.
Mhm.
And even in situations, I try to use good judgment. And my thing is, persons have to make a decision for themselves in terms of what they want to endure and what they can continue to endure.
Right.
But the problem is, we have an issue. People no longer want to work things out. At the sign of something is wrong,
Anything.
they want to flee.
Mhm.
We have some people that are like that, and I'm being very careful. I did say some, I'm not saying everyone.
Right. Right.
But over the last, I would say 4 or 5 years, I have people who've been together for 6 months, been together for 4 months. They're not even lasting a year now. And so by the time they come to me, they've already been separated for at least 2 years. And in a lot of instances, they've already moved on. We have women who have children. We have men who have children. So it's not just men having children.
Yeah.
We have women who are married but have already moved on, separated, but having children for somebody else. And
Oh.
that creates a complex thing because, what you have back in the
Here in
day,
the Bahamas.
in the Bahamas, but back in the day, if you did that, then that child would have to carry your married name.
Mhm.
But because it became so prevalent, what happens now is if the husband agrees to sign an affidavit and say that when you got pregnant, you two were separated, then you would be able to register the child in the name of that father,
Yeah.
not despite the fact that you're married. But that wasn't something you was do before.
Yeah.
That child would carry your marriage name, and then some persons even was able to evade the system and register them in their maiden name, which
Mhm.
really shouldn't happen because your married name is your legal name.
Yeah.
But that's how some people use that avenue to get around it. But that's where we are now. So it's complicated when we decide to do things. And I tell persons before you go down that road, try to get yourself sorted out legally. Don't create situations that are going to have your children in some unnecessary
Yes.
hardship because suppose the man says to you, I am not going to sign that affidavit. Then you stop. Now, the reason why he 99.9% signed it is because if they don't, then they're going to have to be financially responsible for
But,
children that are not biologically connected
Yes.
to them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But just an indication as to where we are in our society. People move on quickly. And to be honest, the majority of people who come to me, they've already moved on. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not being judgmental because I know I have some of my clients listening. And they know that I'm not judgmental. But generally, it shows you where we are in our society and that we have a lot of work to do. I think I'm most focused on if you come to me and that's what you want to do, one of the things that I'm passionate about is okay, here's how we're going to try and do this so that the children can have the best possible upbringing. That is what is fundamental and most important to me. Children's rights have to be protected. One of the fundamental rights of children is a right to have a happy life, a right to have a proper education, a right to experience certain things. But if it's going to be in brokenness, and I'm not talking about the fact that you're divorced, because I have some clients and their spouse who are divorced, and some of them have the best relationships and an even better upbringing. Because let's be clear, we have some people who married, but they sour, they unhappy, and they live in separate lives. They come on and they put on their fake smile and wave
outside of the house
for the crowd, but when they get back inside, they live in separate lives. That's not healthy either. And we didn't get to talk much about separated people because that's an interesting situation. If you're separated, and I say that because separated can mean that you're in separate bedrooms, or separated can mean that you're in two different households. No matter which one, if you're in two different households, then a woman can make an application for maintenance, because if you're no longer under one roof, you can still you may say that you want maintenance to upkeep the children if you're not getting maintenance. And that is something that can happen in the magistrate's court. So, people tend to forget the people that are separated. But in our country, we have a lot of people who've been separated for many years, but they do not pursue divorce, but they live separate lives. And so the children still have a right to be maintained and protected and taken care of, although they're in their situation where their parents may be separated.
And in that case, for like you said before, you have persons who may be separated, but the husband or whoever the child is living with, the other person, the co-parent isn't supportive or supportive, so they can still go to court
and demand that there's maintenance and a maintenance order to be put in place. Yes, that's a right that's afforded to them, because children have to be maintained despite the situation between the parents.
What other issues do separated people come to you for?
A lot of separated people are unsure on whether they actually want to get divorced, and that could be for many reasons. Some people, if they have a certain amount of assets together, they may not want to be burdened or bothered with dissolving assets, properties, the home. You have a lot of persons who still end up living in the home, but they kind of turn it into a situation where they could petition it off and have like two separate entrances and exits, and then they end up becoming divorced, but they're still living on the same compound. We have that situation too. Sometimes it's not a situation where the other party totally leaves and go and live in a different dwelling place. And sometimes that's because, okay, with mortgages, sometimes you may have a mortgage and the bank may say, well, okay, one person can't have the mortgage in their name, so it has to remain in two persons' name. So rather than having to pay a mortgage and live elsewhere, we just do what we could do and do it here. That happens. And so separated people can turn into divorced people but still live in the same home.
So what happens if they're separated, they haven't fully divorced yet, and the husband is telling the wife to come out the house?
Well, my thing is, each party has a right to occupy. So one party, as long as both their names appear on it. But even if there's situations where it's just the man's name, the wife has a right to occupy, meaning she has a right to stay there even until proceedings are done and the court makes a determination as to what happens.
I know someone who has been changed the locks.
That's wrong. No. Even if your name isn't on it, you have a right to occupy until settlement, and that's either spouse, whether it's The house is in the man's name or the woman's name.
Mhm.
You have each spouse has a right to occupy. Now that's until proceedings are finished. Now once the divorce is finalized and the court has made an order, then a time limit is given to that
Mhm.
spouse to say, well, okay, you've received your compensation or whatever you're deemed to be done,
Mhm.
and you have 30 days or you have 60 days to go and move elsewhere.
Mhm.
Now after that period, then you can enforce it if there's a problem.
Mhm.
But that's not fair because my thing is you have to do things in decently. Okay.
Absolutely.
So everybody has rights and interests that they would put into a home. And so if things don't work out, the proper procedure has to be fulfilled in order for that to be done.
Are there any tips? Because I want to speak. I know one of the things you said for persons who either the divorced persons or separated persons or single parents, communication is vital. This is something that you said. And what I'm advising persons to do is to make a commitment to communicate regularly with the other parent regarding your children. While communicating, learn to manage your emotions and speak maturely to each other. Speak about your boundaries and your expectations, and share your child's accomplishments and fears. You said something about someone blocking the other person on WhatsApp. Lord of mercy.
We
Establish
can't accomplish
rules.
anything there when you do that.
Listen, establish rules that both households can abide by.
And that's important because you see, the thing is, we end up there are so many issues because then if the two houses are not joint in terms of what is acceptable,
It causes
then
confusion.
and then children play on each other.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll tell you a situation. You have many persons who decide, well, the father says, well, I'm not going to give you the woman the money because the woman has the right to get maintenance
Mhm.
on a bank account or how it's paid to the courts, however it's done. Because in the magistrate's court, it's paid to the court.
Mhm.
In the Supreme Court, it's paid into a bank account because the Supreme Court does not collect funds.
Okay.
Okay? In the magistrate's court, you can pay on a bank account as well. But then you have a situation where the man says, no, I'm not going to give you the money. I'm going to give the money to the child. And I always say, do not bring children in adult affairs.
Yes, yes.
Allow them, keep them out of that. And what they're going to do is they're going to play it against you.
Yeah.
Because that child may then tell you, yeah, daddy gave me $50, but daddy might have given $100.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but you don't bring them into that because then don't even give them the temptation to start to get to that. That should be left with adults to deal with.
Absolutely. Establish rules. You have to establish rules. And like you said, the children may try play on that, and they may also say, well, mommy used to let me watch TV, or mommy lets me watch TV after 10 o'clock, but daddy wants to, cut off the TV at 8 and say it's bedtime. Y'all need to communicate. You have to communicate. It's going to cause problems. It's going to cause issues with the child. And then it's going to create even a greater problem with you as far as communicating, because now, not other than the fact that you can't stand him or he can't stand her, but now they're arguing even more because this child is going to bed at 10 when this child's supposed to be going to bed at
Simple
8.
communication and being able to enforce rules.
And then for persons who may not like the calls from their spouses or the exes, find some form of scheduling. Just say, okay, let's make an appointment to speak with each other. Since you don't want them call you randomly anyway. You don't want them WhatsApp you. Find email, do something, and say, look,
Figure it out.
Schedule a time at 5 o'clock on Friday so that we can discuss the way forward with our children. Because once again, communication is vital. If you don't know how to deal with parenting together, because you couldn't do it together anyway. Find a way to do it while you're separated, and make sure and always remember this is for the betterment of the child. This has nothing to do with you. So when you're actually in the conversation and you're communicating with that ex, can I use the term ex? Because
yeah, if you're divorced, it's an ex-husband. Yes, it is.
Or
it is.
even if you're not married, you're single and you have the ex
partner.
with the partner. You have to be able to say something. And when you're talking, don't talk about how no good the man is and how no good the woman is, and don't talk about your own issue and why y'all left. That ain't the time for that. Schedule another time to go. You talking about your children now. You ain't talking about what he do and how he gonna sleep that old rat and all this other stuff. We ain't going there.
No, we're not.
Don't you laughing? Listen attentively. Listen to understand. You ain't listening to be critical. They may have something that's on their heart. Well, my child is doing this, or my child just I took the child to the doctor, and this is what's going on. They're going to need XYZ medication at 5 o'clock. be able to communicate that with the other parent, so the parent knows that at this particular
You
time
have to give the
that
child
you
the
have to give the
medicine.
child the
Mm-hmm.
medication. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So you once again, you don't have you're in your feelings because you're not together anymore. You're in your feelings because the wife has probably moved on, or I mean the ex has probably moved on, the other parent. But do not get those feelings involved. Try to maintain or to have some discipline with your emotions when you're dealing with the co-parent or the other co-parent. Um, it's another thing I wanted to say. Try to compromise. And I think you talk about this. Put your pride aside. Remember that it is not about you. At the end of the day, just keep asking yourself, what impact is this really having on my child? All right? Because I'm going to keep on saying it. It's not about you.
No, it's not.
It is not about you. So how can I compromise? How can I say, sure, okay, since you are working on Friday and this is your time to keep the child on Friday, I'll keep the child.
And then we
But
work it
if
out
you
for the
want,
next time.
okay, this
Mhm.
birthday is you want to have the party for yourself and you want to have the party and don't want the husband to come or whatever have you. Work out something where, okay, I'll keep her from 10 to 12 and then you can take her from 12 to
That's all.
5.
Mhm.
Compromise is important. Listen, I went to my son's, I dropped my son off to his friend's house. This is about a few months ago. And the husband opened the door for me and he, say, how you doing? And I'm there in the back or whatever. So I went to see and greet the mother of the child. And, I said, let me sit down for a little while because it's just a long story. I had to stay there because they were going in the pool. And
You supervise. Yes.
okay,
Yes.
well, I stayed there because my husband said, he ain't going in no pool unless you there or I there. If not, he ain't going. That's the type of parenting we do in our house. So I stayed there
Sound like
while
my
they were in
husband.
for true, child, they
Mhm.
need to go for lunch. So when I sat there, so she was talking to me. She said, me and ain't together no more, right? So we divorced already. I say, what?
You didn't even know.
Hey, how you doing, Mrs. Hannah? I mean, he opened the door for me to come in. He was there
That's a
the
good
entire
thing,
time
though.
for
But
the
that's a
party.
good thing.
You know what he said to me? She said to me, because she was talking about he was doing the grilling in the back, and she told me, she said, listen, we already spoke about it. We communicate a lot, on we keep the boys on the weekdays and he takes them on the weekends, and we bought extra pairs of tennis and extra pairs of uniforms and stuff. So some goes to his house and some stays at my house.
They have a plan.
And I was so impressed. I was so impressed by the way that they were doing things and they were cooperating, and they were, like I said, he was to the party, to the house.
As he
Okay.
should be.
And every rule and everything that she had in her home, he keeps that according to her. And they had a smooth transition in their divorce. All right. And I was appalled. Like I was like, oh my God, is this really happening? Yes, it happens.
Yeah.
It's not always dirty, nasty,
No,
complicated.
no. You have some parties who can be reasonable.
Yeah.
And that's what you want to strive for. It may not work out, but that the children shouldn't suffer.
Okay, it says, Mrs. Hannah, you need to have a clinic or a town hall meeting discussing some of these issues. Trust me when I say it is needed. Oh Lord, that's another story. Listen, and then my final point is to check in on the kids. All right, see if they're doing all right.
Yeah, you have
See
to.
how they functioning mentally. See if everything's okay with them, because as you're so busy with having to do your own thing in your marriage, trying to separate and trying to do whatever you have to do, the child is trying to figure out, okay, how am I gonna maintain myself? How am I gonna be stable in the situation?
And they're
Show
very
your side,
wise. They're
and
very
yeah,
wise. They
and
sense everything.
exactly.
And they know when something's
Find out
wrong.
what's going on with them. Find out on their emotions. Find out what's happening. And of course, if you need special or further attention or further counseling, I'm gonna put at the end of the Facebook Nadia's contact, just in case you need some counseling. And if you need some form of coaching, you can log on to my website, www.yourlanelifecoaching.com, where all of my information will be there, just to help you get through this as a single parent or as a fresh new divorced parent. All right, there's hope.
There is.
There's hope, Nadia. Before I actually close out, I want to find out if you have any closing remarks. We have about a minute.
No problem. I just want to encourage your listeners. It's so very important to get good legal advice. And sometimes you may think that it's daunting, but consultations are not very expensive and it's worth it. You need to at least have an idea of what you're doing. So
Yeah.
that's a very good first step.
Mm-hmm. consultation. You
Yes.
have to
It's
have
very
some mature
important.
mediator because you can't do it on your own. You try to do it on your own, you end up the foxtail.
You
You ain't
will.
trying to get the foxtail. All right. You
All
want to
right.
have a mature mediator to help with the situation. Today's show is brought to you by, or was brought to you by, because we're closing out, Johnson and Johnson, distributed by Lowe's Wholesale, Airborne Freight and Cargo Services, Calico Bay, where the cool kids shop. Celestial Treats, John Shoe Store and Accessories, Family Medicine Center, Miniso Bahamas, and Carey's Fabric and Uniform Store. Thank you so much, Nadia
Thank you.
Adderley, for being present with us, for informing us, for enlightening us, for giving us the aha moments that we've been learning and yearning and desiring.
My pleasure. Thank you
Okay.
for having me.
Thank you. Next week, we're starting a new series where we'll be focusing on our physical and mental health as women. Next week's episode, we will have with us Nurse Anita Cates and Chef Keishla Smith Clark talking to us about our nutritional health and what we should be eating and not eating, how to prepare nutritional meals for our families, especially for our picky eaters, and so much more. Before I close, Tony, I want to say last week I was telling my husband, I said, baby, your stomach getting a little big there. You know, and he said to me, you cooking the food. All right. So I can't wait to hear what these ladies have to say to me next week so I can know how to make my meals properly so me and my husband can have be nice and fit and firm, you know? Thanks to my wonderful producer, Tony Williams, and thanks everyone once again for tuning in. Until next time, have a blessed evening.
Great show.
Great show.
Good show. Very smooth.
Thank you. Thank you. It was great. I love it. Very informative. Very deep.